All right, it's 6 o'clock. We will call this meeting of the Joint Review Board to order. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. All right, next we have the review of the annual P 300 reports and the performance and status of the village's active tax incremental districts as required by Wisconsin statute 66.1105 4M.
Well, good evening. My name is Todd Taves from Ellers, and we're here to meet the annual requirement that this body convene. The statutory requirement is that you be provided with a copy of the PE 300 form, which is this really boring form that we include at the back of the report. That's simply a one-year snapshot of revenues and expenditures. So what we like to do to supplement that requirement and really provide you more meaningful information is to update the cash flow projection for the district. So the packet that you have in front of you has a little bit of narrative. I'm just going to kind of skip by that because we'll talk through these items as part of the exhibits. There's two maps enclosed. They're identical. They're intended to show the boundary, but the one with the colors is a little more useful. What this shows is the overall, not only boundary, but the footprint of developable areas, with the red areas indicating either development that has occurred or lots that are sold with a committed party to it. And then the green areas represent acres that are still for sale. So just generally speaking, the west or the left side of the map, that was the village's existing industrial area. So there's still some infill that's available. And then on the right or the east side of the map along the highway, these are the lands that the village acquired for the business park expansion and installed the infrastructure in. And we'll talk about those pieces here in a second. So that's the geography. I see we also have a big map on the wall that's got the names of the parties that have committed to those various lots. The next page, this would be numbered page 6 in the packet. And if does everybody have that? Okay. The far left-hand column, so we've had 4 valuation cycles so far since the TID was created. So the number in the far left-hand column totaling to 8.4 million. That's the incremental value of the district as of January 1st of this year. So represents everything that happened prior to January 1st of 2005. And then what we show across the exhibit is what we're projecting to occur going forward. And again, we segregate this into that existing business park area and the business park expansion area. So for those lots that are committed or where the village is aware of development plans, what we're showing is the year and the valuation that we believe will occur or which was agreed to as part of the sales contract for the village controlled land. The other column I would turn your attention to is almost all the way to the right. There's a column called remaining development acres. So this is the kind of that upper right hand green portion in the newer part of the park, about 16 acres remaining. And what we show there is really the plug number of what needs to happen in order for the district to recover all of its project costs. So that we don't have exact timing. We don't know the exact project at this point, but it shows that we'll need roughly 5.8 million built out somewhere in that 2027 to 2031 timeframe. If it occurs earlier, or if some of these other developments are at a higher value, that number goes down. If things are delayed, that number would go up. So that's the make whole number, basically. On the next page, page 7, we take both that prior actual as well as the projections, which total to 25.4 million. So that would again be the full build out of the remaining developable areas. And we run that through a model that projects the tax increment collection. So the dollars that would result from that 25.4 million are in that far right-hand column. So the first three numbers, the 13,000 through the 119,000, those are the actual tax increment collections. Below that, starting with 127,000, those are estimates that assume that the tax rate will remain the same and none of the properties within the district will either economically appreciate or depreciate. So it's a linear projection. And what this indicates is that if the district remains open its entire 20-year life, we would collect just over $6 million in total revenue. Most important page is page 8. This is the cash flow. This is where it all comes together. On the left-hand side, we've got the actual and projected revenues. So above the green dashed line, our actual audited numbers, below our budget and or projected. So our revenue sources for the district going forward are the tax increments and then also personal property aid. So there was the exemption in state law so that all personal property is no longer subject to taxation. Part of the legislation that did that made a make whole payment to municipalities, including their tax increment districts. So starting with this year and going forward each year after, while the TID remains open, the village will receive about $35,000. Yeah.
Question about that, because I know this year and last year when we first started getting the personal property
Mhm.
aid, the amount was much less.
I
And
looked,
I was just wondering where that came from.
I looked that up on the DOR. And you have to look it up in a couple different places.
Okay, so this number isn't right.
So
Personal
I think
property.
this is so there was two rounds of personal property exemption. There was that one that was 7 or 8 years ago
Okay,
called tools and patterns, and I think that's what you're looking at. There's a separate report that looks exactly like this. That's called Act 12
oh,
personal
okay, yeah.
property aid. So you've got to
Both
aggregate
of those.
the two of those, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Correct. And then just historically, there has been some land sale revenue. We're projecting 375,000 in land sale revenue next year. And the infrastructure as well as the land acquisition was financed with general obligation debt. So you see the proceeds of that debt coming in on the left-hand side, and then in the center, under the expenditures, we show that debt being paid back. So there's a trust fund loan that was taken out in 2 tranches in 2021. So there's 2 separate amortization schedules that carries an interest rate of 4%. And then early in 2024, the village issued GO bonds, and 3.5 million is the allocation to the TID, and you can see the repayment schedule for that. We had capital outlay in the current year, and are all the projects done now at this point, Chris? In
Or they'll
terms of the
they'll be finished by
infrastructure
this year. Yep.
So the bond proceeds basically came in, were spent through this year to complete the improvements necessary to make the area developable. And on the far right, where we show balances, annual is the difference between revenues and expenditures in that year, where cumulative is the running total, and that's the one that we're most focused on. So what this does show is that from the period 2031 through 37, we may run a negative fund balance peaking out at roughly 38,000, but where we want to see ultimately that positive number is in the lower right-hand corner. So this shows that in the final year of the TID, we would close and we would have about 46,000 left over on a projected basis. And again, that goes back to that plug number that I mentioned. So more value happening quicker, higher tax rate will improve the projections, lower tax rate, longer build out, lower values would send it the other way. So at this point, we're fairly early in the TID's life. A lot of the lots that have been sold are waiting for the development to occur. You know, once we start seeing those built on, we see those properties valued because the values stipulated in the agreements are fairly conservative. We'll have a better sense when we know what the real values are, what things will look like for this district as it continues on. And that's all I had. So I'm happy to answer questions or elaborate on anything further if helpful.
When developments give us pilot payments, which I know that at least some of them will, is that just automatically counted towards the tax revenues, or is that sectioned off in a separate, separate income category?
So this would be a pilot payment if they don't meet their value. That would be
Yeah.
treated as
Just
revenue. to
tax
the state.
payment?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
That's basically the guarantees that they have or whatever that it's used as. example.
Yeah, they're gonna be reassessed after they're completed.
Yeah, so like Greatland is a great example where they got a 1 year delay, but they still have to pay us as if that building was built.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, can I ask you a question? Two questions, actually. The TID, actually, you only applied for 2 extra years, or is there still actually 1 year remaining that you could extend that to 43? Or not?
This district could be extended for 3 years.
I thought it already had 1 extension.
Yeah, I can remember. One question I thought of too was 2042.
Yeah, because it wasn't not originally that, I thought.
2042 is the last budget year, based on its statutory life. It could, the village could ask this body to approve a 3-year extension at some point, which would make 2045 the final.
Which, if, and that might be good, I guess. I mean, I'll be around in 42, but
Well, I don't know if any of us will be around, but we're not gonna know until that develops.
yeah,
Right.
and see what happens.
Yeah.
But the other question was Guy and O'Neill is, what's going on in that? Does that affect this at all? Monetarily, and
I mean, they're still paying taxes, yeah,
right? But
so I mean.
I'm not sure
Regardless,
what we're talking about.
well, like the owner, like Guy and O'Neill's not operating.
because everything
anymore.
was based on a Guy and O'Neill buying that
Yeah.
more land
Yeah.
to punch out another big building.
So Guy and O'Neill now.
No. Are you talking about, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No.
Badger paperboard?
No, we're
No.
talking about.
Okay.
the-
Guy and
Guy
O'Neill.
O'Neill expand, because they were originally were gonna expand over here too. So Guy and O'Neill, they've left town in that this building is for lease or for sale again. But we're still collecting tax revenue off of it.
Whoever owns the building will have to continue to pay
Yeah.
the property taxes, or the county would foreclose on it.
Yeah.
That-
Correct. None of us.
No,
Right.
no.
That would be getting a lot of stuff at school or whatever, just right, like if they would go under or they wouldn't pay or whatever, right, then the county takes over, but the money would still be going to the TID. Based on that, throughout the years or whatever,
Yeah,
until
we
it's
still have to
it's settled
pay.
or whatever, right, like.
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
not that there would be
I
more
would,
perceived
I
risk or
would
whatever into the
imagine
TID
that
as
there
part of
would
that.
be a market for a building that.
Yeah.
Size, so.
Well, I hope everything goes good. We gotta just get rid of that extra land right now. Get some buildings.
Find it will.
So one of the things I,
Big building.
yeah, one of the things I shared with a couple of people that came in here earlier, I'll pass to Sandy. So we hired this year Cushman and Wakefield, which happened to be the same ones that the Guy and O'Neill property owners are using too. To handle the commercial real estate. And so they provide us with this nice monthly update each month that shows their prospects, where they're at. And so it's just been nice to see that there's at least activity and there's interest in the lots there. And I would argue that they're doing a little bit more work than maybe our past realtor was doing, which I appreciate. And so while they can't tell us everything here, like the food manufacturer that they're talking with, possibly might buy Guy and O'Neill and then be able to expand over here as an example. So I'm glad that they're looking for that synergy too within our industrial park. And it just bodes well, for the industrial park overall.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
Anything else regarding the P 300? So if there's no more discussion on the report, then next would be a motion to approve the resolution acknowledging filing of the annual report in compliance with the annual meeting requirement. So I have a motion made by Sandy, have a
I'll
second.
second.
Josh, second.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it passed unanimously.
Who's gonna say no?
You went prison.
Wow.
There's always an naysayer
Yeah,
somewhere. All right, well, that being said, we are in order to adjourn. Motion?
Motion to adjourn. I feel like Rick Nelson, actually.
Yeah.
Do I have a second to that motion?
Yeah, he wrote.
All right, we got 2 seconds. Who
Let's
wants
give
it?
it to Chad.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
No.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.